Good morning, good evening. So this video is called Spiritual Discussion. It's pretty much same topic as always, non-duality, oneness. I'm gonna start this video by reading a status I wrote previously. And if you'd like to read that status back, you can either find this status on my Facebook or YouTube channel here. But this is the picture associated with it, with the status, and you'll notice it features the inner eye, and then it has the world and all the planets inside of the mind. And that's very key to the status and the topic of what I cover, but I'll read this for you. All worlds take place through the same presence. Here is there, and there is here. There is no external being walking someplace which is going to reveal you to yourself. You are the unknown being walking about. That place is this place. That being is your own being. When we are unaware or veiled from our truest self, we project our sovereignty into various characters and places, all which appear beyond what is now, or who you are now. But this is never the case. The now is all there is, because the now is this changeless presence, which is everything, all of them, everywhere. Right where you are is enough. Who you are right now is enough. Nothing more needs be done. You have already done it. Stop to realize this. You need not look no further, nor achieve or accomplish any sovereignty. It is already yours. You are not what you assume to be, human, nor are you who you assume to be, which is the birth name, ego. You are so much more. We've come to know ourselves through limitations such as an entrance and exit, an appearing and disappearing. Yet none of these have ever taken place. You are beyond it all. What watches? The presence, which is the moment itself, which does not move, which is not going anywhere, doing anything. The final realization is that the greatest of doings has already been done, and done by you. You are love itself. This entire experience is God's gift to itself, a complete celebration of itself. When you realize this, never again can the mind take you from yourself. You are home, and will drift like water from one form to the next, for you realize that this breath is that breath, and that breath is this breath. That I am you, and you are me. I'll read one more. and this is the picture attached to it. If you'd like to read it back again. And once again, all the pictures that I share are basically telling the same story. They're showing the same details. So the previous picture had the inner eye with the world and the planets all inside the mind. And in this picture, the sun, the moon, and the planets are all revolving around the man. But we are taught on the contrary, that the stars, the planets, and everything is revolving around, or we're revolving around a planet, or we're revolving around some central source. And this is why we're so lost and confused, because we put this source outside of ourselves, beyond ourselves. But this is the big secret that the Freemasons and Rosicrucians know, that everyone's trying to figure out, and it's simply that you are the dot in the circumference. The seer and what's seen are one and the same thing. That's another way of saying this. Quantum physics basically is what proves that directly, that there is nothing, there is no reality until it is observed, until it is measured, until it is viewed. So basically we are that central source. What we call the sun and the moon and all this are one light source. But I'll read the status I wrote. And again, if you'd like to read it back, this is the picture associated here. You can find it on Facebook or YouTube. So, this picture is no metaphor. The light we mistakenly call the universe, the cosmos, the sun, and moon are all one light source, are an extension to what's behind your very eyes. The seer, the body, and what's seen, the earth, are one presence, one being, not two. There is no earth moving independent to what you call the body. The mind doesn't live in the body. The body lives in the mind, as well as every place it assumes it travels. What you truly are has never traveled, never moved, never changed. They say, nothing lasts forever, but what watches it all? The all-seeing eye is yours, because it's only one presence seeing all. That is the big secret. And there is no one that can keep you from realizing this but yourself. You have the power all along. It is our beliefs which limit ourselves and veil us from the truth. There is no physical body, physical universe suspended in free space. What space represents is the abyss of the mind. Space represents and hides the fact that you are truly nowhere. The problem is the mind must shape everything to a word, to a person, place, or thing. Therefore, nowhere cannot be understood through the mind. It is an immovable presence which is beyond mind. Beyond all concepts the mind believes in and creates, such as space-time, beginning, ending, birthing, dying, rebirthing, reincarnating, etc. This is why when you know the self, you are liberated from boundary, from all limitation and fear. You will never be touched nor experience the thoughts, because what you assume to be yourself never was. What we assume to be ourselves exists in thoughts and beliefs, words and shapes. But the only place these words and shapes exist is the mind. That is the only place anything has ever began and ended. The entire journey is but a dream because you never moved. Nothing ever happened. You are God, everything and nothing, everywhere and nowhere, and what you are has no name, needs no name, for it is the source to what has spoken every word, through every language. It is what has written every word, through every language. That's why all religions are telling the same story through different cultures. They are all the one itself, realizing its selflessness once again. You are it, the source to all things, from what flows the river, to what moves the ant, to what phases the moon, to what revolves the sun, to what lights the cosmos, to what digests your food, and to what pumps your blood. We assume all to be separate functions, yet it's all one presence, one intelligence behind it. And the entire point is you are the it. You are the central point. What keeps you from viewing your own face is what prevents you from finding that which you seek. You assume to know yourself, and cleverly so. Therefore, what you seek continuously seems to evade you, because your cleverness fools you and veils you from yourself. And this is why I say this surface level knowledge will not change you. These textbooks will not change you. Memory will not change you. If you're looking for an awakening, a transformation, a rebirthing, then you must go beyond the surface, look beyond knowledge and cleverness, because cleverness will only entangle you deeper into the mind, into the abyss, into the rabbit hole. And the rabbit hole is endless because the rabbit hole represents the mind. It illustrates the abyss of the mind, which is infinite. It goes on as deep and as far as you go. Many people do not take literal the phrase, the mind is everything. But when you experience death for yourself, you understand quite literally and experience for the first time what the mind is everything means and what it's illustrating. Again, we reduce the entire experience to a person, place, or thing. And in the time of death, all these person, places, and things become retracted. And it's in this very confronting moment that you've never experienced anything beyond the mind. And this is why that final hour is so painful, fearful, frightening, tragic for many, because we've yet to pay attention to what remains through death, what remains through change. Death is a constant reminder that there is something here that's not changing, that's not moving at all. And that's why the universe is constantly speaking to us through change. It's revealing to you your truest face at every moment, which is the moment itself. All change is transpiring through the moment, but we don't pay attention to the moment. In the same way, we don't pay attention to the screen. When we watch TV, when we watch a movie, you ignore the screen, you forget about the screen because you get lost in the picture and the animation and the motion and the change from one scene to the next, from one person to the next. You forget all about the presence, the moment in which it's all happening through. At the end of the movie, the screen remains unchanged. It does not matter what has taken place through it. There is no one. There is no one that awakens. What you awaken to is that nothing has ever been separate. No one has ever been separate. Nothing ever was. And that's how everything is nothing. Nothing is everything. Your presence is the source to everything. But in this presence, there is nothing, no thing, no concept, no mind, no memory. Because presence is the source to the entire experience, from everything we know and exist through, which is the mind, which is the memory, which are the pictures, which are the words. Very few people get to know themselves deeper than the words, the pictures. What changes? Because it's hard to do, it's confronting to do. In my opinion, all man-made laws, all man-written laws are just a shadow, which means they disintegrate like dust, like smoke, like a cloud. And that's what's so confronting about an ego death, is you have to get to the root of what started all of it. And what that means is your whole foundation, everything you believe in, is built off of something which never was. We assume to be human, and therefore every law we've written is filtered through the concept, the idea of, and belief that we are fully human. And that's our foundation. We can't be anything else. That is it. But if this foundation is wrong, is incorrect, never was, what do you think everything that we conceptualize through this entity is? It is the very same. It never was. It's an illusion, a shadow, a reinforcement to the very ego we're assuming ourselves to be. There are undeniable forces at play here, but again, these forces cannot be reduced to our words, to the mind. We cannot assign them definition. We try to, in means of communication, communicating that we're all experiencing, seeing the same thing, but this is never the case, and that's what's so insane about our chaotic nature, is there is no one experience. Each and every person is experiencing something in somewhere completely different, because the mind is everything. So as you stated, seeing is believing. Everything you believe is directly what you will see and experience. If you believe you're in a certain time, that is where the time you will experience. If you believe you're in a post-era or apocalyptic era, that's what you will see. It can be any time you believe it is. You can be any place you believe you are. That's the power of mind, and that's the power that, again, I speak of, that no one can take away from you. No one can influence. If ultimately someone can speak forever and ever and ever, but if it doesn't coincide with what you believe, you will not see it, you will not experience it. And that is the power you have. No one else can influence or take away from you. Your direct belief is what you will see and experience. And this also can hinder us as well, because again, we project our sovereignty into various characters and various places, and we tell ourselves that our sovereignty, what we seek, is there and not here, is inside of them and not us, which is again a hindrance, because a lot of us believe in a shadow government, or this group that we call they. And nobody knows who they are, but that's what we call them. And that's why we call it a shadow government, because it's a shadow. Nobody's seen who they are, but we call them they. And they want to enslave the world, and they have this grand scheme to kill or enslave everyone's minds or DNA or whatever. It can go, again, as deep and as far as your mind wants it to. But realize at the end of it, the final conspiracy is with you and yourself. The curtain falls and you are this shadow government that you projected into this belief or this idea the whole time. You are the person behind all belief, and that's why this shadow is your own self. The shadow does not represent evil or bad or anything like that. The shadow represents the parts of you which remain hidden from yourself. So again, no one knows who they are, but the reason being is because they are you. The place you project your answer, your sovereignty, just like the Wizard of Oz, your answer is there. Well, you make it there just to fall short and realize it never was, because you never were. You're assuming to be something you aren't, therefore you're presuming that you have are without something that you're looking for. And this never was the case. It's like looking for the diamond in your pocket. You're looking room from room for this diamond that everyone's talking about, and it's in your pocket the whole time. All you have to do is open your pocket. It's as simple as that. And that's why we avoid the truth, because truth is so simple. The truth is simplistic. But what becomes of ourself, again, we look for that cleverness. The adult needs the answer to be complex. And that's why we look for scientists and these deep, far-out answers and explanations of where we are and how we can exist and this and that. But again, all we're doing through these words is making sense of our chaotic nature. And we must face the inevitable fact that every single thing that we know and have made sense of does not exist, because chaos is our only nature. You are what you're calling God itself. You are everywhere. You are everything. You are all of them. There is nothing separate. So again, chaos is your nature. People talk about wanting to know infinity. Well, to know infinity is directly to experience what you're calling God. And that is no separation. And again, this part is not a belief. When you've experienced the all, the everything, through your being, it's no longer just a belief. It's not something you have to remember. It's not something you have to practice or try at. Once you know, you know. There is no undoing. And that's why I say this is all just an unlearning of everything, because again, we're taught that all this surface level knowledge is power. And maybe to some degrees, but again, that's on the surface. If you're into spirituality to go beyond the surface, then all this surface level knowledge is pointless for you. It's meaningless. It will not transform you. And another thing to note is all concepts of limitations, blockages, anything like that, imbalances. All these things take place in the mind, not the physical. So someone comes to you and tells you they can fix your imbalance, or you have this wrong or this wrong. Understand, there's nothing wrong. All these things are taking place in the mind, what you believe. You believe there's an imbalance, you have just created a problem where there is none. You believe in a blockage, you've just created something where there wasn't nothing. That's the power of the mind itself. And this is where some people in spirituality take spirituality to an extreme level. They assume to know more than religions, but all they're really doing is exceeding the superstitions of religions by assuming to be doing something they're not. And they criticize people who go into churches because they say, why are you going to a church? There's nothing in that building. Well, you give yourself the same permission to fill a crystal with something from the moon or this energy. Well, they can argue there's the same energy in the church. You're doing the same thing. It's a different practice. You're just trading one for the other. These practices will do you no good. If it's an ego death you seek, if it's an awakening you seek, then the practices must come to an end. That's the only way you experience death. That's the only way you transform yourself beyond the surface. Again, that's why I say it's very confronting, because it'll challenge everything you've been taught, everything you've memorized, everything you've dedicated your whole life to. It will challenge it. It will confront it by showing you it never was, which will terrify you to your core. But once you have faced it, there is nothing to fear but fear itself. Once you have faced your fear, you are ultimately liberated from all the mind's games and tricks. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. The mind is what's behind all fear. And once you face that final fear, you will simultaneously find that it that you're seeking. And that's why it's so terrifying. It confronts all that you've dedicated your life to, all that you've memorized and swore to be true. But again, it's liberating, because you will understand and experience the transformation from the inside out. You will understand there is no earth that's changing, it's you. When your idea of yourself changes, you will see what you're calling the earth and outer space entirely different. You won't see outer space, and you won't see the earth. You won't project in infinite outer space out there, far out. Because again, outer space is just the mind. It reflects back to us our own abyss, our own mind. It goes as far out as your mind can go. It never ends, because it's reflecting back to you what's here. From the microcosm to the macrocosm, from the macrocosm to the microcosm, as above so below, as below so above, they're one and the same. There has never been two. That's what yin-yang represents. The yin-yang, the black and the white, we swear there's two, but there's only one and always has been. There is not black and white, there is black-white. It's one presence. And see, we go a step further to again reinforce the ego that we swear we are. Because we say, well, one produces more melatonin, one produces more serotonin, or one produces more melanin, and one produces more this, one produces more that. And so we dissect them to their bones, and we look for all the ways they're different. We look for all the ways to reinforce that these are really two separate things, the male, the female. We go down to the bones and all that, the DNA and the body parts and all that, and just to reinforce even further that there is two, and this cannot be denied. But again, this is where your eyes are always fooling you, and the mind is the little jester, it's the clown that's always tricking you. And that's why they call this a mirror verse. You're only seeing everything in accordance to the way you believe and see yourself. There is not two, and there never has been. And that's why Jesus' final answer to his apostles, when they asked him how he attained the sovereignty of God, was telling them, when you merge the feminine with the masculine and the masculine with the feminine, so that the man wasn't just man and the woman wasn't just woman, when you realize the two were one and the same being, then you will obtain the sovereignty of God. That was Jesus' answer to his apostles when they asked him how he got this knowledge. And he talks about making the male into woman, the woman into male. And that doesn't mean what people are making it seem to be about transhumanism, and they're trying to demasculate the man, and we use that word a lot, this shadow government, this entity, they want to make the man into a woman and the woman into a man, and they want to do this and they want to. But remember, when that curtain falls in that final hour of death, you are what's behind it all. And there is no they, there is no them. It's you and always has been. And again, that's what's so confronting. You are the singularity. And the singularity does not have a gender, does not have a word, does not have a name, does not have a story, does not have a beginning, does not have an entrance, does not have an exit, does not have an ending. It's never began and it's never ended. It is beyond every concept that we have created. And every concept we have created to exist through for ourselves, such as male, female, beginning, end, here, there, you, me, these don't exist. That is the final conspiracy with yourself. It's that you are all of them. You are everywhere. You are all of it. And when you've experienced this, when you know this, death can never fool you again. Because again, you've understood non-duality. There isn't life and death. There is life, death, which is one force, one presence, one being. Death is life, and life is death. It is one presence. It is not two. There is no beginning and end. There is just one presence, which is here and remains through it all. Blue pill, red pill. Good point. Blue pill, red pill. What we call reality and what we call the dream. What we call the organic reality and the artificial reality. Which one's the truth? Which one's real? This is why I tell people there is no such thing as organic life and artificial life. There is no such thing as organic intelligence and artificial intelligence. There is only one intelligence, and that's why the final joke is with ourselves. We're looking around for this grand person to reveal itself that's put us here, and yet we're about to duplicate an entire human being. So the joke's on us. We're looking around for something to reveal itself, and it's going to be us that reveals us to ourselves. That's what the Ouroboros represents. When the snake devours its own tail, when the snake devours itself, you have realized that you are the singularity. It is you yourself. When you ask about ancient cultures and civilizations, you start realizing they never were, because they are you. They are here now. We're moving into the time where technology's advanced so far that we can be in numerous places at once, give or take. And how that is because, again, you are the ancient civilizations. Their technology is your technology. What they were able to do, you are soon able to do, 100%. Another grand question we have is how they created the pyramids, how they moved all this stone, and how they did all this. But we're thinking in physical terms, hammer and chisels, them physically pushing and moving stuff. We've never considered that they digitally imprinted these things, and the reason being is because we haven't made it there yet. But again, we're arriving to that point where we devour our own tail, because now we're 3D printing houses, we're 3D printing organs, we're 3D printing things that we call reality. So just think, if we've advanced enough to 3D print out a house, who's to say, or who would deny, that you can 3D print a pyramid, and that pyramid would feel like solid stone, and it would feel like it had the weight to it, and you wouldn't know the difference between the reality and the dream. Because there is no difference between reality and dream, organic and artificial. It's one presence that does not change. It's one presence that has spoken both words, artificial, organic, reality, dream. You are the presence behind both sides, both words. And that's why I tell people, focus on that presence that is with you in your sleep. When you're asleep and you're producing a dream, you are always there. Your presence is always there. And when you wake up from your pillow and begin your experience again, your presence is always there. Your presence is always required. So the presence does not move, does not change. Artificial reality is to show us ourselves. Anything we're calling artificial is to show us ourselves. From artificial reality to artificial intelligence to artificial life. There is no organic life, organic intelligence, organic anything. The organic and artificial are one and the same. So everything we call artificial is just to show us ourselves, is what's going to allow us to answer our most sacred questions of ourselves. One of the most sacred questions that even children ask is how we got here. How did we get here? Who put us here? And the most easy answer you can think of is just to say God. God put us here. God is what brought us here. But we're living through a time where, once again, it's going to confront a lot of people, because the truth is confronting. It's confronting to everything we've dedicated our lives to, which is a dream. But again, we can't accept the simplistic nature of truth. So we have to veil it and say it's this supreme being, it's this supreme race that's going to come down from the sky in a spaceship and reveal us to ourselves. But this is not the case. There is no other race, there is no other human, there is no other thing. It is us the whole time, and that's the most bitter pill to swallow. But that's why I tell people, you are enough. Right here, right now, as you are, right now, as who you are enough. There is nothing more that needs to be done. Everything is already achieved, and it's been achieved by you, this presence. You have done it all. This is why surface level achievements of buying a car and retiring and buying a house or buying this, filling your house with all these items, will never fulfill you, because the final fulfilling is by realizing you are already fulfilled. You have already done it. The final act. And that's why the hardest thing to do is just be. We run around from place to place, day to day, assuming there needs to be something done here. We must do and do and do and achieve. But we don't understand that the final ecstasy, that final moment, is by being, by realizing you have achieved it. You've already done it. The sun that shines, the moon that glows, that from day to night, you've already done it. So when you talk about there is no organic or artificial intelligence, you will understand this is your intelligence. It is you, this intelligence, that is guiding, directing, and influencing this entire experience. You are the director. But the problem is we don't know ourselves as this presence. So we attempt to grab on to this experience and make it submit to our agenda as being human, as being the birth name. And we fight to preserve this idea we have of ourselves, which never was. Therefore, the entire fight is meaningless. And this is why I tell people you can relax when you hear people say you have no control, there is no free will. This goes back to everything I just stated about 20 minutes ago in this video. You don't need this concept of free will. It goes back to what I said just previously. If the ego is an illusion, it never was, then you have to understand everything we are conceptualizing, from free will, from control, from power, all these things are surface level ideas established from an illusion which never was. Therefore, if the ego which created the idea of free will, power, control, doesn't exist, what makes you think its idea of power, control, free will exists separately to the ego? It doesn't. So the ego never was, nor was the concept it created of free will, of control, of power. So this may be frightening for some people, but it's truly liberating, it's empowering. Because again, you understand there is no fight here. There is nothing that needs to be fought. It's you versus yourself. You don't need the ego's idea of power over this experience, because again, the ultimate power is realizing this experience is your nature. So by you trying to submit this experience to your agenda, your will, you are directly fighting yourself, and you don't realize it. You cannot submit this experience to your agenda or your will. You're not even who you believe you are. You're not who you think you are. This is why a lot of people use the word such as surrender. Surrender to the moment, surrender to yourself. Every moment is waiting to reveal you to yourself. There is no entity that comes down from a spaceship, or some entity that comes down, floats from the sky down to tell you who you are. You are what you're waiting for. You are what you're seeking. But you cannot assume what you're seeking is going to reveal itself to you through another thing, another being. That other is you. There is here. They are you. You have the power the whole time. Needing no power, needing no free will, needing no control is the ultimate power, is the ultimate control, is the ultimate free will. That's the power of surrendering. The problem is we think we're surrendering to some surface level force we call the government, or we call this agenda or that agenda. But you are inevitable beyond it all. Everything is taken care of. It needs no correction. You've already thought that far ahead. Again, this is the most intelligent design there is. Everything is perfect. Everything is corrected on itself. It doesn't need any assistance. It doesn't need any rebalancing. It doesn't need any correction. And you are the very same. You need no assistance, no guidance, no balance, no realignments. What these things do is create a vicious cycle, which puts you on a hamster wheel. And they keep you returning back for more, because you get wrapped up in a doing, and you attach yourself, your nature, to this doing, and the result it produces. But you must never do this, because you must realize an awakening is the absence of doing. You cannot achieve an awakening through a practice, through a mantra, through a video, through a book. So that's why I tell people these videos are to point you in the right direction. I'm not bringing you truth. You already have truth. It reminds you to go back to yourself, to return back to you, to return back to who you are. That I am you, and that you don't need me. You don't need these videos. It is you. Who are you is a very broad question. And that's a question I know cannot be answered. But to answer your question, you said, does my mind create you, or am I talking to myself? And the answer is yes to both, in a sense. The reason your mind creates me is because the moment I describe to you who I am, whether it's through a feature, whether it's through a name, whether it's through a picture, whether it's through a description, your mind is automatically going to begin painting and associating, with your memory and putting together an idea of who I am through what I'm describing. But the thing is, I can describe certain features of myself, and you could paint them completely different in your mind than what I'm describing or what I think. Because again, these words don't exist that we use. The mind is everything. The mind is what's shaping and creating all these words, creating the entire experience. So in a sense, it is your mind that creates me. Your mind may, and that's where again, they say that, the teacher doesn't exist. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is truly ready, the teacher disappears, because the teacher role never was. So again, I can describe to you, I like to philosophize and I like to speak about spirituality and all these things. Your mind may associate that with teacher. He's a teacher. So boom, in your mind you may describe this character as a teacher. Oh, he's a teacher. And just like that, you begin creating this person, this entity in your mind, which never was separate to you, never was a teacher. But we create people to be these roles, these things. It's the same with family, mom, dad, sister, brother. These characters, these roles don't exist, but we assign them these roles and these things, but they don't exist. It is our mind that creates them. And so when we lose people to death that we love, it's not actually us losing them, because nothing is lost in death. But it's us losing the words that we assign them, the titles, the things that they existed through in our mind memory is what is lost. And are you talking to yourself? In a sense, you are. Because once again, you can listen to a video and you can have 100 other people listen to the same video after you, and every person out of that 100 would get a different message, would take something different, would hear something different, because again, we're only hearing from our own level of awareness. We're only hearing from our own level of beliefs. So if I'm saying something very outlandish and bizarre to somebody who's not too open-minded, they won't even accept it. They won't believe it. They won't listen to it at all. They won't hear anything. And that's them hearing themselves. It's nonsense. This is absurd. But somebody else could hear the very same video and say, wow, like he's speaking something crazy here or something. But you're only hearing it from the point of yourself, what you believe yourself to be. So if this video goes completely against everything you believe yourself to be to your core, it will commonly be heard as nonsense. This is crazy. I'm human. I'm a soul. I'm this. I'm that. So what's he talking about? This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. It's all subjective. And reality is subjective. We're only hearing ourselves. We're only seeing ourselves. We're only experiencing ourselves. That is the universe experiencing itself. Sorry. Sheesh. All parallel universes take place in the mind. Remember, there isn't some universe suspended out in free space that's just hanging there dangling or shooting through space. All universes take place through the mind. So what the Mandela effect is and what alternate universes are is just the memory. You can rewrite or change history through 3 generations, they say. Because you kill the grandparents, you enslave the parents, and then you teach the kids. That's what they say. 3 generations it takes. But on contrary, it really only takes 1 generation to change history completely. Because if you change the memory, how history is remembered, or how it's taught, you've completely rewritten history. And again, This is why I tell people it can be whatever year, whatever time you want it to be. You put a class of innocent children, 5 years old, into a classroom and you teach them that it's 1874, that's the time it will become. That's the time they will exist in. It will be 1874. And I'm not saying that there's going to be wagon cars and all these horses and stuff like that running around. But what I'm saying is time is subjective. The experience, the reality, everything is subjective. So 1874 can be whatever time you want it to be. It all depends on how we remember things. So that's what the Mandela effect is. It's changing the memory. So some people say, well, I remember it this way, I remember it that way. Well, the mind basically is the quantum computer. The mind is every outcome, every possibility, every scenario, every stored memory, every outcome, etc. So that means the mind is everywhere, everything, every place. So realistically, that's what the Mandela effect is. It's how you remember it. Because the truth of it all is both are right. There is no right or wrong. It all depends on the memory, how you remember it. And that's why reality is completely subjective. And it's the same with all of history. You can teach history completely backwards, forwards, it does not matter. You can teach it any way you like. It all solely depends on how it is memorized. Because that memory is what will go on to tell the story. But there can be an unlimited amount of outcomes because the mind can recreate or reproduce or memorize any outcome, any situation it likes. If I wanted to tell a story from 200 years ago, but I wanted to tweak little pieces of it, I could do that, and the person listening would not have any idea. I've just changed history. I've just rewritten history through a memory. So Carrie, to answer your question, I spoke on that about 10-15 minutes prior into this video, so I'll still answer the question, but I just recommend at the end of this video, just watch it back a little bit, because I was flowing a little better a while back. But what are we supposed to achieve in this life? And how do we stop reincarnating to this world? So I spoke about this about 15 minutes ago. There is nothing that can be achieved here. There is nothing that can be done here that will ultimately fulfill us and allow us to stop and be at peace, allow us to stop doing. The reason being is because that final achievement, that final doing has already been done. It has already been done. You have already achieved it. You have already done it. But the problem is the adult cannot stop to realize that it's already here. You've already achieved it. You've already done it. The adult, in all its cleverness, tells itself there's a way it can improve this, or it can do it better, or there needs to be a correction here, or there's something wrong here. But we always must complex the moment to something as a thought. Something needs to be done, something needs to be practiced, something needs to be achieved. And the hardest thing to do is do nothing. And what that means by doing nothing is not sitting in one spot and just doing nothing literally, because that's what everybody says. I can't just do nothing. No. That's not doing nothing. Doing nothing is going about your day, going shopping, going to the work, going to the mall, wherever. But you're not going from place to place in a panic or in a rush and telling yourself, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. Or you're not thinking ahead, you're not thinking past, you're not thinking or in thought at all. There is no thought of this needs to be achieved or this needs to be done, or when I get home I'm going to do this or I'm not. You're in the moment. And you're at peace because you understand. You fully understand this final achievement that you're waiting for, this fulfillment that you're waiting to experience to where you can just be at peace. has already happened. And it's right in front of your eyes every moment of every day. But that's why we miss it. That's why we ignore it. We wake up and we tell ourselves, it's just another day. And we reduce this experience to the words in the mind, which just disintegrate the special and the sacredness of the whole experience. But this is not just another day. This moment is your greatest achievement, and it's not going anywhere. And that's where you can find your peace. You are home this moment. You do not die. You are home as this moment. This moment is your presence. You can silence that voice that speaks so loudly within yourself, or what you think to be yourself, and better be without having to do anything at all. And again, that doesn't mean doing nothing by sitting still. Just like the lotus. That's what the lotus represents. It doesn't escape the water. It doesn't escape life and quit its job. The lotus floats graciously above the water without being disturbed on the inside. And that's what an awakening is. It's not quitting your job. It's not leaving society. It's not living in a van. And I'm not saying you can't do those things. But you will not experience that peace you're seeking, that achievement, that fulfillment, until you stop to realize it's already been done. But it hasn't just been done by anyone. It's been done by you. And when you see the sunshine, when you hear the waves wash ashore, when you see the moon, when you see the stars, when you see things, you see them differently because you understand this is you. And this is your achievement. You've created this. You are the intelligence behind it all. There is no organic intelligence and there is no artificial intelligence. You are the one intelligence which is shining the sun, which is phasing the stars and moon, which is filling the ground with soil and moving the ants and moving the insects. You're doing it all. It's not just another day. Your identity goes far deeper and far wider than you know to be. You are so much more than you know of yourself. But we reduce ourselves to 5 senses. And if I can't stimulate myself through these 5 senses, it's not who I am. But it's just like the question of how does a centipede move 100 legs at one time? It doesn't have to think about it, it just does it. In the same way, you don't have to think about digesting your food and moving the sun and facing the moon. You just do it. So again, remember, it's not just another day. It is another sacred moment with you, the self, celebrating. And that you are home always as this moment.